Hello and welcome back to the Out of Spec podcast. Before we get into our dialogue with Jose from RivianTrackr to give us more details about the Rivian commercial van, I wanted to lay out some specs as well as some history about the Rivian commercial van so we have more context before we get into this conversation. Now, back in November of 2023, Amazon and Rivian came to an agreement saying that Rivian can now sell the Rivian commercial van, RCV, to other partners. What Amazon has is known as the EDV, the electric delivery vehicle or van that's used by Amazon's fleet. They have over 20,000 in the wild right now, and Amazon has about, 24,000 level 2 chargers across all of their DSPs that are being used for these vans. So Amazon has quite a big investment, and they've come to about 20% of the original 100,000 order that Amazon is looking for from Rivian. Now, Rivian can sell this van to other partners. And they released an email saying that starting at $79,900, meet the commercial van that gets work done. Now, for some time, you've been able to go to Rivian's website and contact fleet sales and kind of get put on a list, right, where Rivian will contact you in the future about what van you'd be interested in. And they've been doing some pilot programs. They've worked with DHL, the United States Postal Service. I personally know some smaller companies that were actually using the vans, local companies. And so clearly Rivian was working to see how the van could best implement in other industries and other than, just straight postal delivery. Now let's get into some of the specifications about the Rivian RCV. So as we know it, the Rivian RCV has two sizes. They have the 500 as well as the 700. And that's just, those names are based off of their cargo volume. And so the 700 has 652 cubic feet of cargo volume, as well as the 500 has 487 cubic feet of cargo volume. So you round that to the highest whole 100 number. That gives you 500 and 700. So the names are really just based on their amount of volume. Now, the RCV 700 is a little longer as well as a little bit wider compared to the RCV 500. So 700, as of course it has more cargo volume, it is longer as well as a little bit wider. The 500 is really meant for city areas, right? They're actually used in 3 cities in Europe, particularly 3 cities in Germany, as well as the cities of New York. You'll see them in downtown New York really rolling around. I was in Charlotte, North Carolina. I saw them driving around as well. They're really meant for downtown cities, but they can be used anywhere. While the 700 is really used for more suburban areas, they both get about the same range. The RCV 500 gets 161 miles of range, while the 700 gets 160 miles of range. So 161 versus 160, both get about the same range. But the 700 is really meant for lighter but larger packages that are going out to more suburban areas. And funny enough, the cargo payload, the max payload of the 500 is about 400 pounds more than the 700. So as I was saying, right, the 500 really meant for in-city. It can carry a lot of packages, a dense amount of packages because it's built for that. Now, charge port location, we're going to talk more about that with Jose as well, but it is located at the front left corner of the vehicle, same place where Rivian has it for the R1 vehicles. It is currently CCS1. And these are single motor front wheel drive vehicles. They use Rivian's Enduro motor. These are the same motors that go in Rivian's dual motor vehicles, except the RCVs have one instead of two. That one is just in the front. Now these vans have a 100 kilowatt hour LFP lithium iron phosphate battery. In fact, during the early stages of production, the RCV and Rivian R1 vehicles, the R1T and R1S, shared the same battery, and then it was just software limited. This same 100 kilowatt hour battery is said to be software limited as well, and so the range figures that we're getting here, right, 160 miles of range, are not based on that full 100 kilowatt hour battery. Or it could be for this specific spec sheet. Now, there is primarily one seat that is the driver's seat, but there's also a jump seat, which Rivian says is for occasional use only. It is really intended, the vans are really intended for just one driver. Now, the driver's seat, right, manual 6-way adjustment, 2-way lumbar support, and they're heated and cooled. And I've heard that the cooling on these vans is like much more intensive than what you get in like a normal ventilated seat. It is like full AC through your back. They also have cooled wireless chargers, which is not something you hear on a lot of vehicles in general. The wireless charging pad in the R1 vehicles, I drive an R1T, horrible, just to be honest. They absolutely suck, whether it's Gen 1 or Gen 2, they both suck. And funny enough, the RCV charge port I've heard works great, and it's cooled. So come on, right? What's happening there? Rivian, help us R1 owners with better wireless charging. And it has, right, the same Driver Plus hardware, so radars, cameras, ultrasonic sensors, adaptive cruise control, blind spot warning, which is great for something this large, has a ton of cameras around the vehicle, and then speed limit information function. And so I think one big thing that separates, I guess, a lot of the other vans and fleet vehicles is Rivian has what they call their Fleet OS, which is the operating software that they can utilize and give to customers. It's the same software that Amazon uses to help manage all of their vans. So they can implement, right, speed limiters. You can see live GPS location. You can see live range. You can see all of the warnings. You can see, right, any particular warnings that the person driving the vehicle got. Diagnostics. And so it really helps with controlling the fleet of vans that you have. And that's what Rivian calls their Fleet OS. And so I think that's what Rivian is also trying to kind of sell customers on, their fleet operating software, which has its own set of functions and prices, right? I'm sure. But 4G cellular, radio, vehicle mapping, navigation, kind of the basics here. 11 kilowatt hour onboard AC charging, up to 100 kilowatt DC charging. I would love to see the full charging curve of this van. Now, Kyle actually did a video back in Normal, Illinois, where Rivian just let him take a Rivian service van. And he tested it, but it peaked at 50 kilowatts. And so some vans seem to have a peak of 50 kilowatts, while others have a peak of 100 kilowatts. And I think it primarily has to do with actually the battery that is being used, because Rivian has switched the battery for this van about 2 or 3 different times. And so I think it primarily has to do with what battery that vehicle has at the time, but up to 100 kilowatt charging for the 2025 model year for the RCV 500 and 700. So yeah, with Rivian now selling the van to other partners, this is heating up the electric van space. We have the Ford E-Transit, we have the ProMaster EV, we have the Chevy Bright Drop EV from GM, we have the Mercedes E-Sprinter, and we have a few other startups that are working on vans as well. Of course, we did have Canoe at one point in time. I have a whole video about them going bankrupt. You can click on the iCard here. But I don't think that'll be it. I think we're going to see a lot more competition within the commercial EV space. But let's get into our discussion with Jose from RivianTrackr. This episode is made possible by the support we get from Fort Collins Kia. If you are in the market for any electric Kia, not only do they never add market adjustments, they will deliver your car to you anywhere in the 48 contiguous states for out-of-spec viewers. More information in the link in this episode's description. Hello and welcome back to the Out of Spec podcast. I'm here with Jose from RivianTrackr. Jose, how are you doing, man?
I'm well. How about you, buddy?
All is well over here. Of course, I have you on to talk about the Rivian RCV EDV. There's like a million nameplates at this point, I mean, for different purposes. But they're now starting deliveries, I hear, in April. Is that true?
Yeah. So an email went out today, today being Wednesday, February 5th, and pretty much saying, hey, here's the Rivian commercial van, starting at $79,900, and it's kind of a exclusive invitation only kind of deal right now where small businesses can start ordering these commercial vans to bring on board their fleet.
Interesting. And I see it's mentioned here, right? Meet the commercial van that gets work done. We're familiar with the Rivian commercial van RCV because Amazon uses it, the EDV for their electric delivery vans. And it says here, right, advanced safety features and next gen technology. So is this like a step up, kind of like we saw the Gen 2 R1T and R1S? Are we seeing like another, zonal architecture, next generation of the van?
Yeah, so we're really unsure about that because
Okay.
I reached out to Rivian to ask about, hey, is this kind of a next gen? The way they're phrasing it, right, seems
Right.
like a Gen 2 commercial van, and they didn't have any more additional information to share. They pretty much told me, hey, go visit rivian.com/fleet, which is pretty much their existing page that's already existed, which still says delivery starting, Q1 2025, which if you were to believe this email that went out, it's like April is not Q1 2025. So
Right.
so we're it's I don't know if the answer is, hey, we just haven't updated the website, or we're not ready to share anything, or maybe the email is just kind of more talking about software being updated, and allowing some additional software features to be involved, which could potentially be what they're talking about here.
Okay. And when it comes to charging, yeah, no, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and then there's a spec sheet, which you and I have
Okay.
kind of seen, which you'll probably bring up here momentarily. But that spec sheet, this spec sheet right here is great because it kind of breaks down, both versions. Looking at this, nothing on this spreadsheet or this PDF looks different than what currently exists in the EDV/RCV.
Okay. So I guess not too many changes, but again, new model year because this is like the 2025 versus I guess the previous model years that we're seeing before.
Yeah, I think probably the biggest caveat that I'm seeing here, or the biggest change, is that initially, Kyle did a while back a review of the Amazon. Maybe it was the Rivian service van,
I think.
right?
Yeah.
The RSV, I don't know, so many names, right?
Right.
And so one thing he noted when he fast charged it was, hey, kind of maxed out at 50 kilowatts. What's interesting here in this page that we're looking at right now, DC charging rate now says up to 100 kilowatts. So I wonder if that's been unlocked, right? I feel like it was always capable of doing 100 kilowatts for sure. So one has to wonder, is that something that got unlocked via software? Everything else is kind of the same, but hey, you get a little bit faster DC charge. Is it great? No, it's not designed to be a machine that you're going to go. I don't think that Rivian expects their fleet customers to be going to a Electrify America station or a supercharger and charging there, right? And
Right.
they're probably going to charge overnight at a location, kind of like how Amazon does at their warehouses.
Right. Most level 2 charging, it's going right back to its home base or headquarters after its day of work.
Correct.
Yeah, makes more sense. Now, I was curious why we didn't see NACS. Did you get any word about, I guess, when we could see NACS on the van? I mean, it makes sense because even Amazon, most of the electric vehicle charging infrastructure they have is J1772. So it'd be hard to switch, but I was just...
Yeah, I truly think that, well, first off, I think that Rivian wants to deploy NACS, J3400 to their customer fleet first, so like the R1T, R1S, before they decide to do it for the commercial van. But to your point, a lot of these small businesses probably already have, if they already have EV vans, kind of like the 40 Transit or something like that, they probably already have, your CCS connector in their office, right? Their J1337 or whatever. I always forget all these numbers and letters, but yeah, so they probably already have that going on, right? So it's like, okay, well, now I need an adapter to charge, right? So like, I really don't foresee. I feel like if any product gets NAC at Rivian, well, obviously they're all going to get NAC eventually, but I think this will probably be like the last one. This will probably not be one. Now, one thing to note, if you look at the photos for the charging port on the Rivian commercial van, very similar to that Gen 2 R1T R1S, which looks modular, right? So one has to wonder, is that something they could in the future offer as a retrofit to be able to swap that port out? I don't know, right? I could be just talking. Yeah, see, so I could just be talking, but like, you know, it looks very similar, and I mean that could just be for repair purposes as well. But they could offer it in the future. But I don't think they're going to be prioritizing NACS for their fleet anytime soon.
Okay. Awesome.
If my take, right? Might be wrong take, but that's my take.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what infrastructure looks like on the commercial side, because what Amazon has, like, what, 20-something thousand chargers for all of their vans. I think they have more chargers than vans at this point, getting ready for the rollout of more vans. So it's having to switch all of that with all of the adapters that they would then have to use.
It's not going to happen anytime soon, especially, and one has to think that, let's just for a minute think that, you know, as Rivian continues to make these commercial or these delivery vans for Amazon, their biggest customer, right? Their founding customer that really kind of gave them the push to do this. I don't think Rivian's going to go suddenly, oh, you know, we're going to go switch to NACS, right? And they're going to be, you know, I think that is a conversation that has probably been had and probably said, yeah, we're just going to put that on the back burner because it's not a priority right now. I don't, like I said, I think you and I are excited about NACS because, you know, we're the nerds, but like the reality is fleet people, you know, the average consumer, they don't care. Hot take, I don't think they care, right? I think that truthfully, like it's, we make a bigger deal about it, but at the end of the day, like, yeah, imagine shipping 20,000, 100,000 adapters to Amazon, right? The adapters are going to get beat up. They're going to get lost. Like it sounds like a nightmare. Yeah.
That makes sense. And I guess on the point of charging, so these vans share the same 100 kilowatt hour LFP battery. And I guess we'll actually kind of go to the spec sheet here. See if it actually mentions anything about that. But I do know it's a 100 kilowatt hour LFP.
Yeah, it's a 100 kilowatt LFP battery. Yep. So that's all it says, right? But at least we know that, you know, what we know from the Amazon side of things is that the range that is advertised, right, is 161 miles on the 500 series, right? So it's a smaller commercial van, and then 160 or 153 miles for the 700 series van. So not great mileage, but again, you have to remember that these vans were designed with Amazon in mind, right? And Amazon, majority of what they're using them for is around town, not highway driving. So all Rivian has done here is taken the van that was designed for Amazon, gave it a new color scheme, right? Made it white, removed the Prime logo and said, here you go, guys. Like, we now sell it, right? Which is probably what they wanted to do from the beginning. But it's all to say is, like, I don't think if you wanted to create like an ultimate road tripper, you know, camper out of this, I just don't think you're going to really get a lot out of this. It will be a really cool machine, but it's not going to be ideal for doing that. Because I know a lot of people are thinking that in their minds. They're like, oh, can't wait to get my hands on one of these and turn it into an RV. And look, I support that 100%, but you have to be realistic that the range is going to be terrible.
On top of the charging.
On top of the charging. And, right, and we're talking estimated range 161 miles. I mean, you got to know you're not really going to get that. It's going to be a little bit less. And then you're going to put stuff in it. So it's going to get heavier. Like, there's a lot. So, but yeah, so 100 kilowatt fast charging, is it actually like, the next question then becomes is like, I know Amazon software limits their batteries, right, for their electric delivery vehicles because they don't need all 100 kilowatts. Is this the same thing, right? Are they limited here, or is this the full 100, right? So these are the questions that we just don't know yet. And if you're a fleet, which is what this is aimed for, again, remember that we're talking about fleets here. If you are Joe, Mr. Electric, down the street who has an electric company, and they want to get these vans, they're going to be driving around town. They're not going to be doing more than 50, 60 miles in a day, truthfully. And you can order them there. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't give you much pricing on there. All we know at this point is that they start at $79,900, which is actually a little bit less than originally stated. I think originally it was going to be like $84,000. So this is a little bit cheaper, but pricing varies. Yep, and unfortunately, and the only reason we know about the pricing is, again, back from that original email that was sent out to certain people.
Makes sense. I thought pricing was mentioned here before. Maybe they took it
It
down?
was removed. Yeah.
Makes sense.
It was removed. Yeah, no, I looked through this whole page. I'm like, I know it was on here. I'm not crazy. I mean, I am crazy, but I was like, I'm not that crazy.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah, I'm kind of just playing through. I mean, this seems like a pretty straightforward process. I mean, just getting them from Rivian, contacting fleet sales. Yeah. I'm curious.
You're not going to get much on this website. You're going to have to. They're going to work on a case by case basis, is what it sounds like.
Yeah, I imagine a lot of it's going to be contacting them directly. Can't imagine ordering 100,000 through this here.
No, and I mean, think. I know it's a very different machine, but like you look at the Tesla Semi, right? It's on the Tesla website. You can look at it there, but realistically, like, I mean, I think you can put in a pre-order on it, but like you still got to talk to their support team. Like you still have to talk to people. Like they're not just going to let you say, I want 100 of these or I want 1,000 of these. Like go, put it on a credit card. Like that's not how that works. So
it's funny. And do we know who is using them? So we know Amazon, of course. A few, I guess, HelloFresh vans were spotted.
HelloFresh,
yeah, as well. And then we saw the DHL vans, which were in the parking lot, but we haven't seen if that would materialize. USPS was testing them.
AT&T was announced as an official customer at one point.
Right.
And so that's really, those are really what we're looking at here, and that is, DHL, which has been spotted. I have to imagine that we'll get some sort of announcement for DHL here in the foreseeable, near future. I hope that I really do hope that maybe at the February 20th, which is just a couple of days away here, which is the Q4 2024 earnings call and everything. I hope maybe we'll get some information on some new clients for the Rivian delivery vans or Rivian commercial van, because that would be really exciting. And I mean, I think people are waiting for that. I think we're waiting for that. We want to see these roll out everywhere. And again, like Amazon Prime, DHL is a perfect client for it. UPS is a perfect client. FedEx, right? Why not? And I mean, I'm not saying that all of these carriers are going to go directly just using Rivian, but they already have some other ones. I mean, you texted me earlier today. You saw Walmart with the the Bright Drop?
Yeah, they're using those Bright Drop vans by GM.
So, exactly. So, I mean, heck, I could see Walmart doing it, right? Like, why not?
As well.
So,
more options.
A mixture, right? Having and then to take that into consideration, let's take a step back to what we were talking about earlier, right? When you have a mixture of different electric vans, you're going to want to stick to one charging standard. And it's probably going to be CCS for now, because until everybody decides to do that, again, I don't see Ford jumping over and saying, oh, we're going to go put NACS in our e-Transit. I just don't see that happening immediately. So
that was a very good point. Yeah, with the variety of EVs that you're going to have, it just makes more sense to stick with one port. But I think that's all that's really happening with the RCV. I mean, Rivian's ramping up for R2. There's a lot of construction happening as well. I know you made an article about that. If you want to explain,
Yep.
I don't what's happening there.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot happening over there. I mean, the city of Normal, Illinois, just approved unanimously a $3 million kind of. They're pretty much. Rivian is going to be paying. Or $3 million. So Rivian's gonna be paid $3 million for extending a sewer line, right, to across the street in order to expand construction of the factory. And pretty much the city or the city of Normal, Illinois, is going to pay Rivian back, right, in sort of a way. And so the whole project is going to cost about $4 million, but Normal will be covering about 75% of the cost. And this is just helping with infrastructure in the city. So it just really goes to show you, the city of Normal is really behind Rivian here. They want Rivian to be there. They are happy they're there. They're bringing business and jobs to the town, and so they're happy to support Rivian in expanding infrastructure so they can then continue to expand their factory, right? So we can see R2 and R3, and obviously Georgia is going to happen as well. So that's really exciting. And Georgia will take a little bit longer to ramp up, but at least we've seen some drone photos from our friend Zach over on X has taken some drone photos of the normal factory, and R2 construction is ramping up, right? Like not the vehicles, but like the portion of the factory that's going to support the R2. So we'll see what happens as the rest of the year progresses, but progress is being made very fast, which is great.
It's exciting. And we'll be back. Of course, we'll have you on again in April to really see what happens here when Rivian. I mean, imagine before that, we'll start to see more pricing and configuration and options like color. I mean, imagine all of it will be paint to sample or wrapped?
That's the question, right? I mean, you look at Rivian's website, they say that they're going to be offering them in multiple colors. I mean, that could be wraps, that could be colors, it doesn't really matter. But what I'm really hoping is that if anybody out there is listening and you are a potential client for the Rivian commercial van, reach out to, Isaiah or myself. We can keep it confidential, but we'd love to know a little bit of like what this process looks like, because I don't have a business that's going to be able to do this. And, so like I'm curious to know how this whole process plays out and works out, because I'm curious what options you're going to get and colors and all that good stuff, because I'm curious how far they're going to go away from the standard van that exists, that Amazon uses. Like how far off can you go? Or is it just going to be like, well, the back can come, the cargo space can come with some shelves, or we'll present or give it to you empty, and that's about it, right? Like maybe that's the only options you get. Curious to know what that whole process looks like and what options are really presented. And
I'm good.
As soon as we have that stuff, we'll share it with you guys.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I mean, just of course I do my own Rivian stuff, but I was tweeted by someone who works at JP Poindexter, which they make a lot of like custom van interiors. And I was told that it seems they have some sort of relationship with Rivian. So it'd be interesting to see if like Rivian is just, again, building the vans and then using third parties to kind of install some of the infrastructure inside and the setup and the, walls and what do you call these? Shelves.
I wouldn't be surprised, because honestly, like, is that something Rivian wants to take on, right? Like, do they want to be... Respectfully, you and I both know that Rivian already has a lot going on. They don't need to be doing that as well. And so maybe working with a third-party company that's like, hey, here's the shell of the van, right? We give you all the software, we give you the wheels, we give you the thing, blah, blah. And then now you go over here and like, and not necessarily you have to, but like we recommend, this company do that. Could be, a nice little, treat or whatnot. And of course, I think as soon as these vans start definitely rolling out and we see maybe Rivian open it up to like, hey, I want to buy one of them, right? Maybe to individuals and stuff like that. I can absolutely see a third-party market of customization for these vans. That will be really cool to see. And maybe maybe even putting generators so you can get range extended, whatever, all that kind of stuff. So, the possibilities really are endless. So, and I had a picture on my website, on my article I posted earlier, but someone from Twitter X shared they drove by the factory and they saw a bunch of these. If you want to scroll down there, they had a bunch of these vans right there laid out. Like they're just waiting for people to take delivery. It's like, there they are, so they clearly have a bunch, and hopefully that means that they're ready to be, for clients to take delivery on them and whatnot. So hopefully if you order some, you won't have to wait too long to get them.
This is going to be an exciting future. I'm always happy to see electrification when it comes to the commercial space, because it's always in large quantities, and we know how repetitive commercial implementations of transportation are. It's just the same routes and, same localized use. And so it's awesome to see sustainable transportation there. But look, thank you so much, Jose. Of course, you are the Rivian guy, so we will have you back very soon to talk more about
We're both the Rivian guys.
You're the official Rivian guy. You got the whole setup going. And no, I love to see it.
Appreciate it.
I mean, I love opening Google News and then you're right there on the top. I'm like, look at this right here. You know, my news from you.
It makes me proud. It makes me a little happy to see that and hear that. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Of course. Well, awesome, man. Well, yeah, this is the Out of Spec podcast. If you guys have any questions for Jose, please leave them down in the comments and I'll make sure to get right back to you guys. Again, this is the Out of Spec podcast. My name is Isaiah. Thank you, Jose, for joining me. And we'll see you guys in the next one.